Hello everybody, welcome to another lesson from Tutors. And in today's video, I'm going to be discussing elasticity of demand and just in general what the elasticity concept in economics means. So starting off, what actually is price elasticity of demand? That's what we call it. So it essentially just measures the sensitivity of consumer demand to price changes. So like, as you can probably guess, it's going to differ from product to product because of many different factors that I'll get into later. And the way you can actually calculate this is by using the percent change in quantity of a good, divide that by the percent change in the price of that good. So let's say, for example, the quantity demanded suddenly goes uh, up by 10% because the price went down like 5%. Then the price elasticity demand of that would be 2. And I'm going to be explaining what the significance of that number is in the next little bit. You can also use delta Q over Q divided by delta P over P because that's pretty much just percent change, the formula for percent change. And as you can see here, everything is just labeled for you right here. And an important thing to note is that the number is always going to be negative because of the law of demand. Because as you can think about it, if the price of something goes up, consumers are going to demand less, and vice versa. So if like price of something goes down, they're usually going to demand more, and that is the law what the law of demand states, and thus price elasticity of demand is always going to be negative, but it's usually omitted because it's like implied for price elasticity of demand. So there are different types of elasticity, and what that means is the number that I just mentioned. So like in the example I gave, where it's 10% change in quantity over 5% change in price, that the elasticity demand is 2. So that you can see that would correspond to here is when elasticity demand is greater than 1 but less than infinity, demand is elastic. So that kind of corresponds with quantity with diagram B, this graph right here. What that means is consumers are quite sensitive to price change, so there's likely to be quite a noticeable increase or decrease in demand, even with a small change in the price. So I'm going to be explaining the rest of the diagrams now. So in diagram A, perfectly elastic means just no matter what price it is, like consumers are going to want to kind of demand infinitely many. This usually doesn't come up, so in my opinion, it's not very important to understand super well, but like just know that it exists, and the graph kind of looks like this. And in diagram B, like I just mentioned, consumers are quite sensitive to a price change, and as you can see, the slope of the curve does not look that steep visually. So that is definitely a good tell that it is quite elastic. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but as you can see, the less steep it gets, the more elastic it gets. And in diagram C, when elasticity of demand equals 1, demand is unitary elastic. So that just means that for any percent change in quantity, it corresponds to the same percent change in price. So like if price goes up 1%, then demand is going to go down 1%, and so on and so forth. And you can see here that's kind of just like a right angle triangle in a way. I'm not sure why it's drawn like a curve here, but it should be like just a straight for if you connected like those, it would be like a right angle triangle. And when the elasticity demand is less than 1 but greater than 0, demand is inelastic. So these goods are usually like necessities or not that don't have that many substitutes. So even if the price goes up, consumers don't have much of a choice. They still pretty much have to buy it. Of course, the quantity demanded is going to go down a little bit, but but overall, the price change is definitely going to be more than the quantity change. It's important to remember. So it looks a lot steeper compared to like diagram B, where the demand is elastic. And finally, perfectly inelastic. This is for stuff that people absolutely need. So like something like insulin, for example, you pretty much, no matter how expensive it is, you're gonna buy it because you need it to stay alive. Can lead to a lot of ethical issues where of price gouging, where companies pretty much set the price really high because they know they don't have a choice. I'll say most of the time these two extremes, perfectly elastic and perfectly inelastic, aren't gonna come up that often. So like for even like needs like insulin, it's just gonna be very very inelastic. So like it'd be even steeper than this. Maybe like that if you see where my cursor is. Like it's I in my opinion I don't think it's realistically perfectly inelastic because there's always gonna be people who suddenly can't afford it. Um, After the price increases, no matter what. So I just think it'd be very, very inelastic. So the price elasticity demand would be very close to one, or sorry, very close to zero. Excuse me. So why do we actually care about elasticity demand? So when for as a supplier, it overall helps them to determine whether to raise the price of their goods or not. So as we can see here, if the demand is inelastic and we increase the price, then the total revenue is going to increase. And this is actually quite logical because if you think about it, like for like a need, like I said, um, let's say I have insulin, right? Um, if if the price for insulin increases, maybe I lose like a few consumers, but like suddenly the price is so much higher and there's still so many people that are buying it, so my total revenue overall is going to increase. As you can see, it's kind of it's the revenue can be calculated by price times quantity. So like let's say we start over say we start over here at price P, and then the company decides to raise it to price P1. So like from this rectangle, as you can see, this rectangle is quite a bit smaller than this rectangle, which is their total revenue. So like companies can know if their demand for their good is inelastic. Oh, sorry. If the demand for their good is inelastic, then they should definitely raise the price to get more revenue. Now, if it's inelastic and they decrease the price, then their total revenue is going to be decreased. It's pretty much the opposite of logic of what I just explained. So, for something like insulin, you're likely not going to see like a 50% off sale or something like that because there's no point of them doing it. They're going to be losing revenue. Now, for elastic demand, on the other hand, this is for something that has lots of substitutes. Maybe like brand A of potato chips, for example. Um, as you can see here, if equilibrium price starts at P and Q, even if the potato chip prices raise slightly, you can see the revenue is going to be a lot smaller than what it originally was. That's because there are lots of substitutes and it's not really a necessity. So people are much more sensitive to price changes. But on the other hand, if it starts at P1 and equilibrium quantity of Q, if they suddenly like decrease the price even a little bit, lots of people are gonna flock to be getting it. So the revenue is gonna go up. That's why you usually see sales for goods like this, like in potato chips, or in supermarkets where they choose to make it like 25% off, 50% off, so on and so forth. It's important to remember what the for elastic demand, it's usually better to decrease the price so you can increase total revenue. And of course, it's the opposite for inelastic. And finally, unitary elastic, as we can see here, doesn't matter what the price changes to. Like demand is just flat. It like they're always going to be demanding this amount. The revenue is just going to be unchanged. So, like I think a good example of this would maybe be like where every producer agrees on a fixed price in a market. So like maybe they're at a farmer's market and every producer of corn agrees we're gonna sell piece of corn for like $1. So something like that. Like I said, I don't believe this comes up that often, so you don't really need to know this. Just remember that elastic demand, you should be decreasing the price to increase your revenue, and for inelastic demand, you should be increasing the price to be increasing your total revenue. And that can be explained using the graphs, like I just said. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comments below, and we will try to get back to them. Tune in next time for more economics lessons coming your way soon.